Are you ready for the Low Blows Network? Finally,
they finally gave me my own podcast.
Gerry comes to the Low Blows Network. One of the biggest legends of the Irish wrestling scene, Gerry talks to his wrestling friends and beyond about the hobbies in their lives that they're most nerdy about in Talk Nerdy to Me.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's another Talk Nerdy to Me with your host, Gerry. I'm at home this evening. I'm relaxing at home because we've a very, very big special for you today, ladies and gentlemen. Today we celebrate probably one of the greatest comedians that this country has ever had. The absolute grand master of comedy, Mr. Brendan Grace. Sadly, he passed away 2 weeks ago now, and I was very, very lucky enough to be able to go to his funeral. Very, very sad time, but to hear the stories from his family and his friends really put a smile on people's faces, and it just goes to show you how loved he was. As I say, we have a special here on Brendan Grace this evening, and I have with me somebody who I wouldn't call him an expert on it, but he'd be like me. He'd be one of those big fans of Brendan Grace, and he just so happens that he happens to be my cousin. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Paul. Paul, how are you?
Good, Gerry. Thanks for having me today.
I'm glad you're here because it gets the two of us get to talk about Brendan because, God, I remember looking on Facebook and you just kind of scroll through. It's just one of those things you're scrolling through, and then I got a text message from it was my sister-in-law actually, Kiva, and she said, "Have you heard the news about Brendan Grace?" And I'm like, I'd heard the news that he got cancer, he was sick. But I immediately, as soon as she sent that message, I didn't even reply. It was just simply, I better check this. Something's wrong here. And then, of course, I checked it, and it'd been confirmed that he died. Now, there was a bit of confusion on Facebook and on Twitter. Some people saying he was dead, some people he wasn't, and keep him in your thoughts and prayers. But then it was confirmed he was dead. What was your reaction when you first found out he was dead?
Yeah, I mean, I was actually in utter disbelief. Obviously, we'd known he was sick. I believe you had the pleasure of seeing him last year.
I saw him last year. I saw him in the National Concert Hall last year. And despite the fact that he had type 1 diabetes and he'd had a stroke and he had a couple of other health problems, he still got on that stage and he still made people laugh. And he made light of the fact that he wasn't well. But he still got up there and he was his usual jolly self. Now, he said himself that unfortunately he couldn't play the guitar anymore. His singing wasn't great. And, his singing at the time wasn't great because he actually had a chest infection. But he said, rather than cancel, I might as well come out here and entertain you. And it's something that Brendan always did. And the one regret I have from that show is that, if you're a Brendan Grace fan, you know that after every show, regardless of where it is, it could be the National Concert Hall, it could be the Gaiety, or it could be a hotel down the country somewhere, he always stays back. He always greets the fans, takes pictures, autographs, jokes around, and absolutely everything with him. And it's the one real regret that I didn't do that this time. It's not that I didn't. Unfortunately, we had to leave. Myself and my wife had to leave. And that would have been the last time I seen Brendan. There was a couple of other times that he was in and around Dublin, and unfortunately I didn't get to go because of various different reasons. The one biggest regret that I'll have, though, is he did a gig, and as far as I'm aware, it was one of his last gigs in Portmarnock golf course. I'd imagine it was about 2 months ago now. And I had organised with a guy that I was working with. We said, right, let's, we saw the poster. Oh, we have to go. Brendan Grace, we have to go, regardless. And it's perfect. We finish work at 7:30. We go straight over for the 8 o'clock start of the show. Perfect. And we forgot. And for me, that's just going to be one of the biggest regrets I'll ever have because it would have been one of his last ever performances before he fell ill. These things happen. You forget, and you'll always, I should have done this, I should have done that. But somebody like Brendan Grace, it is going to be a big regret for me, because I was brought up on Brendan. We were brought up on Brendan.
Absolutely, yeah. We're even starting to look like him now.
Yeah. That's actually true, the two of us. Because the two of us have kind of very similar hair, kind of wavy. No, we wouldn't call it short hair, but it's not long either. It's kind of wavy hair. We've got the big beards, and we've both got a kind of, I've more a red beard than you do, but yeah, we're kind of starting to look very similar to him. I have to say, that's a bit scary, actually, isn't it?
Yeah.
That the two of us actually look like him. Big fans of him.
Are you subconsciously emulating him?
Yeah, well, maybe. I have no problem with that. Absolutely no problem. I was brought up on the man, and I've absolutely idolised him for many, many years. But I'm going to take us back a little bit to the very first time me and you actually got to see him. Yeah. In person, and that was in the Gate. I couldn't tell you what year it was. I would imagine it was the early 2000s, wasn't it?
23 at the time.
I don't think we were that old.
We were definitely over, because Alan was with us, the whole family. It was definitely after my mum. So
that's right. Well, I'll paint a little picture here. We were going to see him, and I said it to my. I said it to my mother and father. I said, "Oh, will we go and see it?" And people listening to this wouldn't know me, but my parents got divorced, but they became good friends after the divorce, and then my mother remarried. So it was a bit of an unusual situation. She said, "Yes, me and your stepdad will go," and then my father was going, and then my nanny was going, and my great aunt was going, and my cousin was going. So it was a proper family affair.
Don't forget your aunts as well.
Well, there was aunts as well, wasn't there? Yeah,
like 18 of us.
Yeah, it was a big crowd, big crowd. But I'll never forget. And if this was a joke worthy of Brendan Grace, absolutely. We got to the Gaiety, and talking to my mother and talking to my father, talking to my stepfather, and then everyone else kind of turns up, and I'll never forget my grandmother. She said, "Would you look at this one?" And she points to my mother, and everyone's like, "What's right?" Look at her. She had to bring both of her husbands, didn't she? And I'll never forget that simple little joke. And I said, that's Brendan Grace. That's the Brendan Grace coming out in her.
Yeah.
And of course, we went to see him, and as always, had us in hysterics. The one thing I loved about Brendan Grace is that he was doing it for 40 odd 50 years. To this day, you can still hear one of the jokes that you've probably heard about 50 or 60 times, and you still laugh. But not only that, he still came up, even up to this year, was coming up with still new material. Mm-hmm. He would still throw in some of those golden oldies, and you just sit there and laugh. And we're going to get to some of them now in a minute, but I'll never forget that. I'll never forget that night, because the fact that me and you were very similar. A lot of people for a long time believe we were brothers.
Yeah.
And they still do to this day. Even the fact, and it's worse now, because we're starting to look alike now as well.
Really are.
With the big bellies and the big beards and the bit of ginger and whatnot. But I'll never forget queuing up to meet the man himself.
Yeah.
Afterwards, and that was the thing that was great about Brendan Grace, is that he had time for every single person. It wasn't, I'll sign a couple of autographs, I have to go, bye. No, he stayed till the very end, till the last person left. One out. And I remember we went up, and how he is, boys, how he's getting on. And I've met famous people before. I'm not going to name drop now, but I've met famous people before, even like worldwide actors and superstars and things like that. And I've never been as starstruck as I was standing beside Brendan Grace, because this is the guy I idolised. This is a guy that we were brought up with, and absolutely loved him. And he said, "Where are you from, lads?" And of course, you said you're from the Coombe, and of course that's right around the corner from where he grew up. And straight away the little chat that he's had, and just amazing. And he says to me, "Where are you from?" And I said, I'm from Ballybock. I know it well. And he named various things in the area and things. I was like, this guy just. He is a fan's fan. Yeah. That's what he was. There's a great, man's man. He was a fan's fan. That's what he was. He was the ultimate good guy, the ultimate comedian, the ultimate star. He really, really was. And it is a sad time to see him go. And it's sad that I can only imagine what his family are going through right now, because to have this larger-than-life character gone. But to them, he wasn't this. He was their dad, and he was their husband and grandfather. And to hear the words of his 4 children at the funeral, they painted somewhat of a different picture of Brendan Grace. Not a bad picture, an even better picture. That this guy, as a joke on his kids would say, well, I'll collect you. And oh no. And he turned up dressed as Butler and dressed as his alter ego, just fantastic. And his daughter saying that when you go to anyone else's house and you'd see, a nice, might see a nice Merc or a nice BMW in the drive. No, there was the 47A in their driveway. It was a full-size bus in their driveway. And that was the man himself. He was just quirky. He wasn't eccentric. Well, maybe he was. I'm not too sure. But he made, not me, not you, he made the entire nation, the entire island of Ireland, because there was no north and south to him. He did shows up north, he did shows down south, and it didn't matter. People loved him. And people stayed back, and people got his autograph and pictures, and he always had time for them. And it never mattered. Like, I don't have something physical from him. I don't have a signature. I don't have a photo with him. But what I do have is I have a response from him on his Facebook page from a couple of years ago, whereas he'd done that Living with Lucy, which was fantastic. Absolutely. I only watched it again the other night, and I just wrote a little message on Facebook saying, listen, finally got around to watching. Absolutely fantastic. It was great to see another side of you and your lovely wife. Can't wait for your show. And he responded saying, thank you kindly, Gerry. I'll pass on your kind words to Eileen. Yeah. And I love, even he's writing a message back like that, and he still happens to put in a little joke. And you're like,
the character. He really
just fantastic, just fantastic. But what we're going to do now is we're going to talk about our favourite sketches. And, this was difficult. Yeah. This was difficult because there's so many good sketches. And we've been literally sitting here trying to, what's going to be your one, what's going to be my one. It's been very difficult. For me, it's been very difficult.
What I'm amazed at is that we've managed to pick 6 sketches without having any conflict whatsoever. It just goes to show you how much of a consummate, amazing comedian that man was.
He was. He absolutely fantastic. But I tell you what, we're going to go over a couple of your sketches here. Let's talk about the first one here. We won't go into detail about it because we're going to let the listeners listen to a little bit of it. But let's talk about Butlers Day in Court. What a sketch.
Butlers Day in Court. Do you know what? I have to say, this was the first time I was ever introduced to Butler. I remember it vividly. I was 11 years old. I was stuck on a bus in France. I thought I'd been given 6 weeks before that. I was told I'm going on this amazing trip to France, that I'm going to see Paris and Nantes and Lille and Bordeaux, and I'm like, unbelievable. And then I find out I'm going to Lourdes with no offence, but as an 11-year-old child going to Lourdes, kind of takes a bit of the shine off it.
Forget about it being 11. I'm 35. I wouldn't want to go to Lourdes. God, no.
Stuck on a bus with 80 other people, not one of them, actually that's a lie, one of them my age, but I didn't realise she was on the bus because I was upstairs, she was downstairs. So all I had to do was listen to tapes. And I happened to bring 2 tapes with me. One of them was Happy Hour, and the other one was his Grace Alive Oh, if I'm not mistaken.
I love that name.
Oh, yeah, fantastic. But anyway, Butlers Day in Court was my first introduction to Brendan Grace's Butler, and I think I just remember, like, it was a 10-day trip, and I didn't stop laughing the entire time. And not only I didn't stop laughing, the people on the bus were laughing because I was laughing so hard. It's just, it's still to this day, it's by far and wide my favourite sketch.
And there we were in the court. And I was never in the court before. And the judge was sitting up there, and he was one of them judges with the wig down to here. He was like a Labrador with distemper. And facing him like a bag of chisels. And he's looking down at me, and I'm looking up at him, and he was on his own, I remember, just himself. And he's sitting there, and he says, "Order in the court." I said, "I'll have a gin and tonic, and..." He said, "Don't be cheeky, you cheeky little imp." Do you recognise this court? I said, well, I think he's got it done up since I was here the last time. He said, have you ever been up before me? I said, what time do you get up at, Your Honour? Now, you've been brought here by the guard, and I want to know what you were doing after midnight in the Dublin mountains on the ground with a girl under the car, and the car disappeared. Well, I said, Your Honour, I said we were just kind of, you know, we were kind of, she had a bracelet that wouldn't fasten, and I was showing her how to fasten the bracelet. He said, come on, we're not going to believe this sort of thing. What were you doing with a girl after midnight at your age? Yeah, I saw, Your Honourship. I was only trying to, you know, so I was teaching. He come on, he said, I'm not going to accept this. I said, Your Honourship, I'm as innocent as an unlaid egg. He said, come on now, don't be assuming innocence and never count your chickens before they're hatched. I said, now hold on for a second, Your Justiceship, I didn't mention chicken. And I said, a man with your education and the money that your parents spent on college, and you're coming up with stupid little words like, don't count your chickens before they're hatched. I said, there's better words than that you should be using. You should say, never calculate upon the ultimate proceeds of your poultry enterprises before the full process of incubation has fully materialised. That kind of milk. He looked at me again, and he said, I'm going to hold this case in camera. I do not want the people here to hear what's going on. All reporters leave everybody out of the courtroom. I said, you're going to hold it what? He says, in camera. We'll find out what you were doing. I said, what do you mean by in camera? Well, he said, I know what I mean. And the guard knows what I mean. The people in the jury know what I mean. And the people in the court know what I mean. Now, what were you doing for the final time? Well, so, to be honest with you, Your Justiceship, I was just doing a little bit of slap and tickle. What? Slap and tickle, Your Justiceship. What do you mean, slap and tickle? Well, I said, I know what I mean. I said, the guard knows what I mean. And the jury knows what I mean. And the whole people in the court know what I mean. I said, if you had been there that night with your camera, you'd know what I mean as well.
Okay, Paul, I think what we're going to do is I'm going to continue the theme of Butler. Because, you know, whenever you're watching a DVD or you go to a show of Brendan Grace, and he does his hour and a half or 2 hours or whatever is the act, but then as soon as you see him leaving the stage, you think the green jacket's coming, the green jacket, the green hat, the fact that the man was in his 60s playing a schoolboy was just brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But one of my picks was Butlers Day in School, and just. We're not even watching it. We don't have it on. We're not listening to it.
I've listened to it so many times.
Yeah.
It's rattling off in my head now at the moment. I'm watching the actions. I'm seeing the actions. It's
just, ladies and gentlemen, if you've never, ever watched Brendan Grace, and I'd be a bit surprised if you hadn't seen even some of his stuff. If the first thing you see or listen to is the next sketch, then you're going to leave, you know, you're going to say to yourself, I'm going to have to watch more of this. I'm going to have to listen to more of this, because it's just one of his, it's just one of his best Butler sketches. And it's, I actually remember the first time I watching it. I watched it on DVD. It was in my mother's house, and she had it. Actually, it was probably on tape. Don't mind DVD. It was probably tape. And I remember sitting there and being a lot younger. You know, one of the best things about Brendan Grace is the fact that he wasn't smutty. There wasn't a curse word in it. There was innuendo everywhere, and he would go, and I used to he'd always, you know, get a little F in there or a little S in there, but he'd never say the word. I think the worst thing he ever said on stage was in another sketch we're going to talk about later on, where he says gobshite. I think that's probably the worst.
Yeah.
He says, because he'd never curse on stage, and he always stayed true to that. 40, 50 years, never cursed on stage. Probably cursed like a trooper at home. You know, you'd have to ask his kids or his wife that, but just for me, just the Butler stuff, he just kind of brought him to another level. And it was, you know, his kids even said it themselves, and other people at the funerals, you didn't lose one person, you lost two when Brendan died, because you lost Brendan Grace, but you also lost Butler. And I just think you're doubly sad because of that, because it was such a fantastic man, but that was such a fantastic character to play. And it's definitely one of his funniest sketches.
But I hated school. I hated school. Did you hate school? Did you hate school as well? Yes, I hated school. And we had a teacher, God bless us all, a big fat woman. Not you, Mrs. A big fat woman was our teacher. Miss Higginbottom was her name. Oh, she was huge. And every day she'd come into the classroom and she'd torture us with lessons and things we had to do. And one day she came into the classroom, and I'll never forget it if I live to be normal. She came in the classroom, she's standing up the front, and doesn't she drop her pencil on the ground, on the floor in the classroom? And she took a terrible chance. She kind of had her back to the classroom. Wasn't a great view, but she bent down. And the minute she bent down, it was like an eclipse. I'll never forget it. And Razor Mulligan was sitting in the front row, and he goes, "Ooh." She turned around and said, "Razor Mulligan, what did you see that made you whistle?" He said, "So, Miss," we used to call her store, she was so big. He said, "Miss, when you bent down, I seen your tights." "What? You cheeky, filthy little boy. Pack up your school things and get out of this classroom and go home. Scrub out your filthy mouth with as many tubes of toothpaste as you can, and don't come back to this school for a week." He was gone like a shot. Following day, we're all in the classroom, our nerves are gone, and she came in. She was a little bit later than she was the previous morning, and she's opening her bag, and doesn't her ruler fall out? And most of us were on the line at the time. But Rasher McCormick was kneeling down because he was late that morning. He was doing the morning offering later than the rest of us. And she bent down right in front of him. Like that. Now, to this day, we still don't know what he's saying, but he fainted. And he kind of went, "Whoa." She says, "You cheeky pup. You're as bad as the other fellow. What did you see that made you whistle?" He said, "Miss, when you bent down, I seen the elastic in your knickers." She says, "You dirty, filthy, get out of here. Pack your books and go home and scrub out your filthy mind with Brillo pads. And don't come back to this school for 7 weeks." He was gone like a shot. So I'm thinking to myself, Razor got a week off for looking at tights. Rasher got a week off for looking at the elastic in her knickers. And I hated school. So the following morning, I brought me binoculars into the classroom. And she was late again that morning, and she ran in, and as she came through the classroom door, she tripped up over the wooden duster that I was at the nail into the floor. And she went head first into the waste paper basket in front of my desk. She was like a Christmas tree upside down. And whatever way the sun was shining in the window that morning, I stood up on my desk. I took out my binoculars, I had one look, and I packed my books and I said, "Good luck, lads, my school days are over."
Now, if there was one thing Brendan was amazing at doing, was pretending to be drunk on stage.
Absolutely.
he just had a way. He had a way with words. He had a way, the fact that he could burp and fart on command on stage. Now he wasn't. Of course, he wasn't really farting, but it was the sound of it and that type of thing. It was just he just did it so well.
Yeah.
If you're an actor and you want to know how to act as a drunk, watch a Brendan Gray sketch.
Yeah.
Not that he was drunk. Just the fact that he did it so well.
His mannerisms were
from start to finish. You believed that man was drunk until he would do the drunk part, and then it would be almost the narrator part, and he would back to Brendan again, and just absolutely fantastic stuff. He could have, I'd have loved to see a masterclass by Brendan Grace on how to do these things. That would I'd have paid any amount of money just to get the insights of how he came up with these characters, how he came up with these jokes, and how he did them. Because there's many people who can do various voices and imitations and sounds and things like that on stage, but Brendan Grace was just fantastic when it came to acting drunk.
Yeah, I mean, everything, you go back to when he's talking, he's pretending to be with his wife.
Yeah.
And, he's pretending to be the wife, and the voice he puts on and the mannerisms. He just, nothing will change the fact that, it's a big beardy guy on stage. Mm-hmm. But you close your eyes, and you just think, and you can imagine everything he's acting out.
Yeah. Absolutely everything. There was other sketches that he did where he was pretending to be his grandmother, and then he was pretending to be his mother-in-law.
Mm-hmm.
And you believed he was this 60, 70, 80-year-old woman. 80-year-old old woman. And just, absolutely amazing. But none better than a drunk. And I think one of his best drunk imitations was the Drunk's Night Out.
Absolutely.
Two fellas coming home one night. They go into the pub just after the Clare All-Ireland. They walk into the pub. They're sitting there. They're having a few pints. 8 pints of Guinness later. And the conversation gets very tricky. You have one fella saying, Michael, was it you or your brother was drowned at sea? And the other fella had to think. It must have been my brother. I was never in the Navy. And then they're asking stupid questions. He says to the barman, he says, has a lemon got 2 legs? The fella says, not at all. Well, he says, I think I squeezed a canary into the gin and tonic. As they drink, it's getting worse. The conversation is out of control. They're hungry now. They're looking behind and the barmaid is ready to... There's all signs in this bar. Freshly cut sandwiches, hot soup served all day, all shepherd's pie, cottage pie. And I can tell you, they were getting hungry. And the barmaid was there, and one fella calls her over. He says, come here for a second. He had her leaning over the counter like a shot, and him stock taken. And he says to her, would there be any chance of a quickie? She says, I beg your pardon? He says, I'm wondering, would there be any chance of a quickie? And the other fella says, I think it's pronounced quiche. Quiche. There's a woman down here who doesn't know what a quiche is. Hope she knows what a quickie is. I don't know. And she says, pizza. He says, pizza yourself. No, she says, pizza. It's a very special piece. It's made from dough, cheese, onions, tomatoes, and peppers. Oh, pizza. Does it come in a bowl? She says, no, it's baked in the oven. Well, he says, I'll have that. But she says, would you like me to cut it in 8 slices or 6 slices? Oh, if you make it 6 slices, I'd never finish the 8 slices. When he was finished, you can imagine girls, with the cheese dripping out of his teeth and the onions here, and you have to wait. You know what it means, girls. You know what it means, fellas. You know what it means to come home at night and have a large bottle of stout taken out of the fridge and poured for you. and your back scratched, and you know what it means to have a nice toasted sandwich ready for you? You know what it means to have your feet tickled? You know what it means? It means you're in the wrong house, fellas. These fellas have just finished the pizza and they're on their way out, walking out. One fella goes into the toilet, the other fella goes outside the door. And the lad in the toilet, now there's very strange things happening in this country now ever since television a Gaeilge started up. The toilets in the Gaeltacht now in all the pubs are bilingual. A half Irish and half English. That's right, you have the fur jacks and the banjacks. You'll see it yourself. And then there's the fir tree outside, just in case. And there's a big difference. I mean, there is a big difference between the toilets, being the gents and the ladies. And ladies, I want you to know this. You don't know your comfort. You've carpets on the floor in there. You have your own little cubicle. You could do your own thing. You have a little privacy. You can come out and you have a big mirror to powder your nose. The gents' toilet, lads, am I right? On a Saturday night, it's like a mart. Like a mart. There's lads everywhere. Right there, hey, move up there. Come on, any chance. Make a chance. Up there. Hey. And there's lads pushing you up in the corner. And fellas trying to shake hands with you. And then there's the drunks who come in. I mean, this fella's really drunk when he comes in. You can always tell him drunk. And he's walking in and he's pulling down the zip in his cardigan. And he gets up into the position like that. And he takes out his toy. Now, wait till I tell you. And he's standing there for a few minutes. He even shakes the toy when he's... Oh, for the love and the honour of God. He puts it back into the cardigan. He pulls the zip up in the cardigan. He doesn't even know he's destroyed himself. He only notices when he's walking out. It's... And he picks on this fella out in the bar. Did you spill a pint of beer down the front of my trouser? The fella says no. But he says, it must be an inside job, so. And he's afraid. He is afraid to go home. He calls his sister to pick him up. Will you come out and pick me up? He said, yes, I'm destroyed here. I'm in the pub here. Destroyed. I'm damp and wet and weary. She says, where are you ringing from? He says, from the waist down, anyway. And the other fella went out the front door and he wasn't feeling well. I don't mean to be rude, but he gets sick. How do you say sick without saying vomit? Oh, yeah, he calls Huey. No, they always call Huey. And then they call some fella called Buck. And he gets sick over the tomcat. And the cat goes... Jeez, I don't remember eating that. It's a curse, that drink. I mean, when an Irishman leaves a pub, let me tell you this, when an Irishman leaves a pub, we never go home on our own. We always bring home a witness. We're very sentimental leaving the pub. We always feel our way out. We always touch the wall. Because it's plastered too. And we never go home on our own. We always, as I said, we always attract other drunks. We become human magnets. Two fellas... They're walking up the South Circular Road one night. They're only 300 yards up the road when there's 12 of them. All footless. And there's only one. They don't know where they've been. They don't know where they are. They don't know where they're going. They don't even know who they are. And there's one fella leading them like headless chickens. And they're going by this block of flats, and as they go by the block of flats, they could see a light on the 3rd floor. And there's one fella saying, Mrs. Murphy! Mrs. Murphy! And the window goes up and the head comes out, yes? Are you married to Mickey Murphy? Yes. What about it? Would you come down and pick him out so the rest of us can go home? As they walk up that road, and they all separate, one fella kind of goes off on his own with a 6-pack under his arm. And he meets, as he walks down up the road, he could see there's 2 nuns, you see, walking towards him. And they're kind of walking, and he's trying to balance himself up. Oh, yeah, devil, yeah. And when they come to him, they walk on either side of him. And he looks around and says, "Gee, how did she do that?" And one of the nuns comes back with a little box, and she says, "Would you like to help the Sacred Heart home?" He says, "I can hardly find my own way home." And then the other 2 fellas are on the railway line. They could have been killed walking along. "Hey, this is the longest bloody staircase I ever went up in my life." The other fella says, "The Shaggin' Bannisters has my back broke here." Well, tell me here, the bloody... But there's always the wife waiting, girls. You're the ones who have to wait, aren't you? Yes. And the questions. Where were you tonight? I was out. It's a great answer, isn't it? And what are you doing here? I'm coming home. 2 best answers you can ever give, fellas. I was out and I'm coming home. You could have been out of the house for a month and it covers you because you've told no lies and you've given no information. And what are you doing here? 3 o'clock in the morning? This is the only place open. And before anything happens, she goes straight back up to her beauty sleep, leaving the 2 of them sitting down in the kitchen. And after his pal falls asleep after an hour, Paddy now makes the pilgrimage to the bedroom. And as he walks up the stairs, and she can kind of hear... She doesn't know what's going on. She says, "What are you doing down there?" "I'm trying to get a bottle of stout up the stairs." She says, "Leave it there." He says, "I can't. I'm after drinking it." By the time he's at the landing, he has the hots. He could see her in the bedroom. The bedroom furniture waltzing with each other. Photographs on the wall of the Pope and President Kennedy doing the military 2-step. And her on the bed going around in circles. Around and around. And he's going, ooh. The next time that bed comes around, I'm jumping up on it. Up you bite. And he does. And as he stands there, he looks down at her with her tongue draped over the dimple of her chin. And he says, "I missed my chance. I missed my chance. God damn it." And then he reaches into his pocket and he takes out 2 aspirins and he places them on her tongue. And waits, and she wakes up. "What are they?" He says, "They're 2 Aspros, darling." She says, "I haven't got a headache." "This is my lucky night, so."
Now, when you're talking about Brendan playing a drunk, there was none better than the drunk going to the Chinese takeaway. Oh. Now, this was the very first. This was definitely a VHS I got. It was a VHS. I still think my mother has it. And I remember it was, he had shorter hair and I remember watching it. And my mother put her on me. I was a kid when I watched it and just fell around the place laughing. But when it came to the Chinese takeaway, just for me, it's iconic.
It is. I mean, it became a staple of ours.
Absolutely,
as a joke for how many years? People would look at us going, "What the hell are you guys on about?
What are you talking about?" Like, you know, we were talking about earlier on about how he never cursed on stage, but he definitely came to certain boundaries.
Absolutely.
But he never stepped over. It's the fact that the Chinese man saying, he's trying to say the far Q, but it comes out, "Fuck you! Fuck you!" Now it's very sad though in 2019, in this day and age, that people probably wouldn't do a joke like that.
Yeah.
Because freedom of speech and people being offended and whatnot. There wasn't an offensive bone in Brendan Grace's body.
No.
And to this, I think this joke, even to this day, stands the test of time. Or this sketch, I should say, stands the test of time. The Chinese takeaway, from start to finish, is probably one of his best sketches. This was really hard, because I know I've said now probably 3 or 4 times this is one of his best sketches. Because he doesn't have a bad one.
No. I mean, I couldn't rank this. If you said to me,
no,
rank them,
God, no.
I couldn't rank them.
Not a hope. I would never be able to go and say, right, this is number 1, this is number 2. No, I couldn't do it. I have my favourites, but I couldn't put them in order.
You could do it, but your order would change depending on the day.
Yeah, every day.
Some days you want to listen to Butler, some days you want to listen to Brendan, some days, you like you said, you might like the drunk stuff.
Yeah.
Other days it might be just you want to hear the jokes as opposed to watch them. Let's say if you're on audio, and some of them transfer fantastically over onto cassette without video, and some absolutely, like a Drunks Night Out, are enhanced. As good as they are without it, they're enhanced tenfold by seeing him act it out.
Oh, absolutely. When you're watching it, you're not only watching it and hearing it, you're feeling it. I've always thought that about him. There's many, many great comedians out there, and no matter what way they do it, Frankie Boyle, very offensive but very funny. Brendan O'Carroll, a man that started with Brendan Grace.
Yeah.
Fantastic story. Something I never knew. The fact that I had been brought up with 2 Brendans, and 2 very different Brendans. One being this nice, never cursing on stage, larger than life Brendan Grace, and then you've got this other guy who's a lot smaller, but his just seemed bigger. Even though the fact that he was very small, he was bigger, but offensive, lots of cursing, but no less funny. And the fact that I love the story though from the Ortiz Brendan Grace documentary, that Brendan Grace gave Brendan O'Carroll his first shot. He was working for him, and on his 18th birthday, I think it was his 18th birthday, Grace calls O'Carroll and says, "Listen, I need you to come up to the house. I need you to bring me to town." And Brendan O'Carroll's like, "It's my birthday. He wants me to work on my birthday?" Like, come on. Oh. All right, Brendan, I'll be over. So he goes over to Brendan's house, and Brendan had a multitude of cars. Nice cars. Everything was nice. Everything was nice and new and whatnot. And the 2 of them walk outside, and Brendan Grace goes, "What car will we take today?" Of course, Brendan O'Carroll started to get frustrated now. It's like, "Oh, will you just come on? I want to maybe go for a drink or do something on my birthday." And Brendan Grace points, "We'll take that one." And Brendan O'Carroll's looking, going, No, Brendan, we can't take that one. That's not your car." And Brendan Grace goes, "Oh, you're right." And out comes the hand out of his pocket with a set of keys and goes to Brendan O'Carroll and says, "You're right, it's not my car. It's your car." And he bought him a car for his 18th birthday. That was how generous this guy was.
Yes.
He gave Brendan O'Carroll his first break. And look at Brendan O'Carroll now, the hugely successful Mrs. Brown's Boys. Multiple TV series, multiple DVDs, multiple books, massive movie. Hear rumours now of a second movie coming out. He has a second show on air now. It's just, everything is huge. Now, that's not to say that, Brendan O'Carroll wouldn't have got to where he was with or without Brendan Grace, but Brendan gave him that little shove, and
certainly didn't hurt,
and it certainly didn't hurt. But just sketch, it was very difficult. I know I've said that a few times now, ladies and gentlemen, but to try and pick out the best, trying to pick out the best scenes here, it's
like picking your favourite child.
I know. My child is lucky because he's the only one. I'm sometimes he's not even my favourite.
We'll remind him of that now when he listens back on this in like 20 years, and he can understand what's been said.
Well, he said to me, Daddy, was I your favourite child? Well, I said, Killian, you were my only child, but I still like Brendan Grace more than you. But, yeah, for me, definitely in the top 5. I couldn't put it any higher. I couldn't say, right, this is number 1, number 2, number 3. Has to be the Chinese takeaway.
But no matter where you go in Ireland today, you'll find that there is a Chinese takeaway. And I figure that the Chinese people, wonderful people, they're lovely people, and they make fabulous food. Gee, the food is fantastic. But obviously the Chinese takeaways were designed by a Scandinavian. Some fella from Norway or Sweden, 6'7", has designed the Chinese takeaway because the counters are about this high. Now, the Chinese people, who are wonderful people, they're not as high as the counters. So you cannot actually see them behind the counter. You could see the tops of their heads. It's like a wig on a pulley going back and forward, like this. But they're there. And the amazing thing about it is that they all look the same. There is an aquarium on the counter. There's a television behind the counter. There's a menu on the wall the size of a cinema screen. And there's always 2 doors. You ever notice that? 2 doors behind the counter. Where you can never see people behind them. There's always a hand comes out like this. And delivers the brown bag. And the hand comes back out again. And they have a great means of communication. They have a great means of communication. Now, they didn't bother to learn the lingo before they came to this country. You know, they don't speak very good English. And usually when you go into a Chinese takeaway, and I go there quite a lot, you're greeted with, "Why you want?" "Why you want?" Now, this is supposed to mean hello and welcome. How are you? What would you like? Have a seat while you're waiting. There it is. Good luck. Thank you. And save home. That's all covered in "Wha you wa." Now, "Wha you wa," if you are ever greeted in the Chinese takeaway with "Wha you wa," you just say to them, "Wha you got?" And it totally confuses them because they don't know what they got. Somebody else wrote out the menu. Now, "Wha you wa" is fine if the customer is sober. If the customer is sober. But you get 2 fellas in Dublin coming out of the pub. They come out of the bar at about 12:30 at night, and they are full. And they come out of the bar, and they come out like... They're so full, they have their heads in the air in case they spill any. On the way home. And they immediately get the curry feeling. Come here, Mick. We go and we get a takeaway. Chinese takeaway. And it's about to say, okay. So they go along and they arrive at this Chinese takeaway. Here, we go in here. 1 hung low. He must have been in the war. One hung low. And they walk in to the typical Chinese takeaway, as we know them in Ireland. They walk up to the counter, and once they come inside the door, they're greeted with, "Where you are?" I beg your pardon? Why you are? Come here. Who said that? Come here for a minute. Come out here and say it. Now, you just visualize this. Try to imagine this Now the pubs have closed, and the whole takeaway, the whole restaurant is filling up, and there are lines, there are queues right behind everywhere. And the fellow rushes up. Give us can I have chicken and chips twice? I had you first time. Now, what you want? Give us I'll have beef curry with no onions. And onion curry with no beef. We don't have that. Well, you had it the last time I was here. There was no beef in the curry I got. You want a beef detector? And meanwhile, just visualise now the whole restaurant is full, and there's a fella coming over. Excuse me, give a portion of chicken. Asshole! No, the leg. The leg, I don't know the asshole. Now, what you want? Give us, have you spring roll? Spring roll? Yeah, spring roll. How many spring roll you want? How many have you got? It was 11. Separate. And I'd also like curry sauce on the side. The queue, though, remember? The lines behind. Visualise this. And there's a fellow rushing up. I'd like a spring roll and a chip. Fuck you! What's on to me? Fuck you! Don't bleeding start now. How would you like to wake up with a crowd around you? I tell you, fuck you! What's he saying, Jim? He says the far queue. He wants you on the far queue. That's what he's saying. Over here. Yeah, I'll tell you a fact though. What does your girlfriend want me? Duck. A duck. Sorry, I no duck. 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 Not duck. Duck. We have no duck. But you better find one. We're not leaving without it. We have no duck. How would you like this counter over there in the car park? I told you before we have no duck. You don't see understand, you stupid cockshot. You stupid idiot. You idiot. I give you a simple test to find out you understand what I said. Spelling test.
Spelling? Okay, I'll do the spelling test.
Okay. First of all, take C our chips. What you have?
See our chips? Hips.
Faker. Take R our rice. What you have?
Ois.
Faker. Now take F our duck. What you have?
There's no effing duck.
That's what I tried to tell you.
Now we've got one pick each now for our favourites, and this one, I remember my father's now, he's 12 years dead now, but I remember watching this particular sketch with him, and just like tears tears coming out of our eyes because we felt it was that good. The first time ever hearing it, and you're like, oh my God, this was fantastic. It's the sketch, and I want to say this correctly. It's the rhubarb tart sketch.
Yeah.
And this is your last pick of your favourites for Brendan Grace. Why do you think this is up there as one of the best?
For me personally, it's hard to quite put my finger on it, but it just kind of brings a lot of elements together. I mean, kind of on the same line as the Chinese takeaway.
Yeah.
It's a little bit on the risque side, you know.
Well, in 2019 it
times.
would be, yes.
Yeah. But it's just a funny sketch. And again, it's one of those, as funny as it is audio, I thoroughly recommend, when you're finished, YouTube it, watch the video, because it just adds another layer on it. And I think that's one of the things I always like about it, is that it transcends, and not only does it cross over, but it gets better. You know, I suppose you could argue and say that with a lot of comedians, but it does. The fact that his work is so good at a level, just purely from an audio basis.
I've never not laughed. No, I tell a lie. You know, when you hear something, because I've watched his stuff multiple times, and we're not talking about 1 or 2 times, probably 15, 20 times now. And this is just goes to show you how much I love Brendan Grace. The fact that I'll get a text message from a friend of mine, or from my brother or sister-in-law, or even from you. Mm-hmm. Do you see what's on RTE? Do you see what's on, you know, it's on RTE2. What's on RTE2? Brendan Grace, boom, straight on.
Yeah.
And it could be anything else on the TV. It could be a vote to see who's going to be in government, or a vote to whatever, or a World Cup final, or whatever. I could not care less. Brendan Grace on the TV, I'm putting that on.
Yeah.
Anyone else watching the TV? No, get out. Brendan Grace going on.
I wasn't allowed to watch
this. You can watch this, or you can watch nothing. You can go to bed. And that's not me saying that to my son. That's me saying that to my wife. If you're not happy, then you go up and you go to bed. I'll watch Brendan Grace. Thanks, bye. Love you, bye. Brendan, let's go.
Yeah, no, I couldn't. I wasn't allowed to watch it when the family were watching it, because it was like, you know, at this stage, you'd know maybe 90% of the material, because, you know, a lot of it's already, he's got years and years of material, but you've been listening to it for so long that you really get to know it. Mm-hmm. And I'm laughing before the punchline hits, long before the punchline. Yeah. He starts the joke, and all of a sudden, the joke is gone. The joke is finished in my head. I'm in bits laughing at it, and my family are like, "What the hell is wrong with you? That wasn't even funny." I'm like, "Just watch."
But when you watch something so many times and over and over again, you don't always automatically laugh. But there's never been a time where I've watched a Brendan Grace sketch or something on YouTube, or something on TV, or even something on the radio, that I haven't just had the biggest smile on my face.
Yeah.
And people look and go, "Why are you smiling?" I was like, "It's Brendan. That's what he did. He, no matter what was going on in his life, no matter what was going on with him, and the fact that he was, you know, he'd had these couple of health complications. He'd lost a couple of toes because of diabetes. He had type 1 diabetes. So he had to be very careful with that. He had a stroke. Mm-hmm. And, you know, watching the documentary and then tell us about what had happened to him. But yet people had been accusing him of being drunk on stage. But it wasn't. It was the fact that he'd had a stroke and he was on medication.
Yeah.
It's horrible. Absolutely horrible to be accused of something, and you clearly, you know, I wasn't drinking. I'm on medication here, and absolutely horrible to be accused of something like that. But no matter what he went through, whatever health concern, even with pneumonia, strokes, diabetes, and then with the cancer, he still looked after everyone else. He still looked after people. I was reading only the other day that he was recording a 3-part documentary, and it was about him and about the choir that he works very closely with, is the Forget-Me-Nots.
Yes.
Which is an Alzheimer's support. They do charity work for Alzheimer's support groups and things like that. And he was planning, and this again is another one of those things you said, Jesus, we're missing out on something special here. Because he was planning later on this year in the Gaiety, there's going to be a special concert with him and the Forget-Me-Nots. Now, for me and you, we're big fans. I'd have done anything to be at that concert.
Yeah.
And just the fact now that he's gone, it leaves that's another regret. You think, oh, what could have been? My wife is a huge Michael Jackson fan.
Yeah.
And when he announced that he was doing this big tour, it was 3 months or something in London, in the O2 in London, and then he was going to the European tour, but he wasn't coming to Ireland. My wife and my sister-in-law said, right, let's go to one of the other countries. And she came to me and she said to me, oh, this is Michael Jackson. You need to go to this. Because you never know, you never know what's going to happen. You probably never do another tour in Europe. You probably only do America, or you'll do Las Vegas or whatever. And then it was announced that he died. Instantly thought, what could have been?
Yeah.
She had never seen him live. He was her favourite artist. And she never got to see him live. And that was a huge regret for her, because that's all she wanted. She wanted to see him live just once. Just once. And this could have been something special for Brendan Grace in the Gaiety. But the guys that were recording the documentary came to him when they found out that he was ill, and they said, we'll leave it there. And he said, nope, not a hope. You're going to come with me. And they even filmed him in his hospital bed up to 2 days before he died.
Yeah.
And he said, you need to do this. This needs to go out there. I need to help these people. This man was dying in his hospital bed. But yet wasn't thinking about himself. Was thinking about that group of people, the Forget-Me-Nots and the Alzheimer's charities that he wanted to help, despite the fact that he was lying, and he knew he was dying, in a hospital bed. And he said, this has to be done. You need to do this. You need to finish this documentary, and this show has to go ahead. So I can tell you something now. If this show in the Gaiety goes ahead later on this year, come hell or high water, I will do everything I can to get a ticket for that show.
Yeah.
Because I want to be there. Because he wanted it to go ahead. I don't want to be there because, celebrity watcher or anything like that. And that was something, I'll tell you now, something I was very annoyed with. I was very privileged to be able to go up and stand outside the church for Brendan's funeral. And for me, it was, emotional, and I wanted to be there to pay my respects to somebody that I had liked and respected so much. And like the vast majority of the crowd that were there, they were there for the exact same reason. But then you had other people there, and it was very clear that they were just celebrity hogs. They were there calling every celebrity that walked by them, come here, I need to talk to you. Come here, can I get a picture? Can I get an autograph? That's not why you're there. You're there to pay respects to the man that made you smile. And clearly you could not give two shits about the fact that this was Brendan Grace's funeral. Like, I remember at one point, I was standing there, and his hearse had just gone inside, and I got tapped on the shoulder. And I'm like, I'm not moving. I'm not moving. I'm staying here. I'm not moving from this spot. I want to be here for this. And I got another tap on the shoulder, and I turned around, and who was behind me? Only Brendan O'Carroll himself. Brendan O'Carroll and his wife. He said, sorry, son, I need to get past you. I was like, oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, no problem. And he went past me. But I didn't say anything else. I didn't, can I have a picture? Can I have an autograph? This man was going to see his mentor. He was going to pay his respects to his mentor who had died. And other people in the crowd, oh, Brendan, can I have a picture? Can I have an autograph? Brendan. Just so disrespectful.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be going, if this concert goes ahead, I'm going there for Brendan to pay my respects once again, because he wanted this to go ahead. He wanted it to go ahead for this group, for the Forget-Me-Nots, for charity. I'm going. Mm-hmm. And I can tell you, I will be there. If I had to stand outside, I'll be there. I don't care, because this is what he wanted. He wanted the show to go ahead. I'm looking forward to the documentary. Well, most of it, the end. The ending won't be particularly good, considering the fact that it will have shown him unwell in hospital.
Yeah.
But I will be there to pay my respects, no matter what. I don't care what I have to do. I guarantee you now that's going to be on my bloody anniversary now, isn't it?
Yeah, with you and your party and all. Yeah, and I'm in Tuscany. Yeah.
You know what? I'll make it work. I'll make it work.
Well, you can get her to make it your anniversary present.
Well, consider I have a party.
Yeah, how many bottles of sangria will it take for her not to miss you? She's only short.
No,
Two?
No comment.
1.5.
No comment.
Ask Derek.
But we're going to have a listen now to a bit of rhubarb tart.
Rhubarb tart.
My father gave jobs. He was a sympathetic man. He gave jobs to everybody. A Japanese fella came in for a job one day, and God bless us now. As again, I don't mean to be disrespectful when I say that they're not as tall as us. But this fella had never, ever been to Ireland, and he'd no words of English. And he's up looking for the job on the building site. And my father said, what's wrong with it? And someone said he's looking for a job. They gave him a pair of overalls, a wheelbarrow, and sent him off working on the site with no words of English. And after a week on the site, this poor Japanese fellow was losing weight. The weight was falling off. And everybody was scared. Maybe this man has picked up a tropical disease and it's going to spread. And somebody said, no, the reason he's lost weight is because the man isn't eating. The man is starving. He doesn't know what to eat. He's from a different culture. He doesn't know what to order to eat. And my father said, well, let's sort him out. I said, come here, knick-knack. Come here, knick-knack. Come here, let's talk to you. He said, come here. No, so hold your yo-yos now for a minute. You will have to eat to put on weight. You understand? Eat weight. So hold your yo-yos. You'll go into the canteen here, and you go up to the woman behind the till, and you'll say to her, now listen, rhubarb tart. No, so you listen to me, you lug you. Rhubarb tart. Rhubarb tart. You'll starve if you don't listen to me. Listen. Rhubarb tart. Rhubarb tart. And he practiced for about an hour, and he went in on the day, and he went into the canteen, and he went up to the lady, and there was a queue, and he came up to her, and he says, rhubarb tart. She says, what? He said, rhubarb tart. A rhubarb tart. And she gave him the rhubarb tart. He ate it like it was going out of fashion. He was starving. The minute he was finished, he couldn't wait to go for another one. Up again. Rhubarb tart, rhubarb tart, rhubarb tart. She gave him another one. He went up 5 times that day. The following day, 10 times. Rhubarb tart, rhubarb tart. By the end of the week, he was fluent in rhubarb tart. The only 2 words he knew, rhubarb tart, rhubarb tart. 5 months went by. And it was the bank holiday weekend at Easter, and the fellas were back on the Tuesday morning, no sign of the Japanese fella. Nying Yang Nyuk wasn't there. And I said, yeah, he was going at the rhubarb tart a fair bit now, so he was at it. And on the Thursday morning, the gates of the site opened, and here comes this pitiful sight walking across. And he walked straight up to the foreman. You see, no more rhubarb tart. No more rhubarb tart. No more. Rhubarb, no more. So my dad being the foreman, realised he thought this guy's had an accident or 2. And he said, come here, said, we'll have to tighten you up. Come here for a second, we'll tighten. Now, it's different. No more rhubarb tart. No, said, no. Ham sandwich. Sandwich? No, ham sandwich. And he practiced it for 3 hours and he got it right. Ham sandwich. And he walks up to the poor woman in the canteen. She says, rhubarb. No. No more rhubarb tart. No. He says, sandwich. She
He says, I beg your pardon? He said, oh, ham sandwich. And she says, ham sandwich. Yeah, ham sandwich. And she says, do you want brown bread or white bread? He said, no. Ham sandwich. Yes, sir, but do you want a brown bread or white bread? Oh, ham sandwich. He said, do you want brown? Oh, it's a rubata.
Now we're going to just have a quick chat about this, and then we will leave it to the people out there to decide if this is probably one of his best sketches ever. And it's one where he's probably more as famous as he is as Brendan Grace comedian and as Butler character. This was the one scene. This was the one joke. This is the one character that really put him on the map, because this is the character he did for Mr. Frank Sinatra.
Absolutely.
And it was then then Frank said, you need to come to America and you need to do this sketch over in America because you're going to be huge. And that's exactly how he got into America and became as big as he is. And that, of course, ladies and gentlemen, is probably his famous sketch, his most famous sketch, which is Father of the Bride. I love this sketch. And again, what we were saying earlier on, there's a lot of sketches that they don't translate completely. It's still very funny listening to it on an audio, like a podcast or on a tape or whatever. But when you watch this, there's certain things that he does in this sketch. Subtle little things, like he's trying to light a cigarette. Yeah. And he throws the matches in the air. And then the smoke goes in the air. And at one point he's pouring himself a glass of Guinness. And puts the glass of Guinness in his pocket. It's just simple little things. And people, he wasn't even talking at this point, but he's still getting laughs. People are laughing at him. And just, for me, it's the... I can't...
It's the layers. They just, like you said, every little thing just adds that extra little bit to it.
This was the thing about Brendan, because he was able to add so much to one part of his show. It wasn't just the mannerisms. It was mannerisms. It was speech. It was accent. It was props. There was so many things. Like even the Father of the Bride. There's the two sketches before the Father of the Bride. You've got the priest, and he's got a set of fake teeth in, and then you've got the best man, and the best man has a different voice. And then he goes slightly, backstage for 30 seconds, comes back out, and the hair is a mess. The shirt is out. The tie is off, the jacket's hanging off the shoulder, and he starts belching and farting and doing his drunken speech. Again, another one of his drunken sketches, but probably his best one. I'm going to say this is my favourite. Yeah. This is my favourite. I know we said at the start we couldn't pick our favourites because there was too many, and the fact that we were able to get down to 3 each was a miracle, but I'm going to say it now. This is my favourite because just for me this is Brendan Grace.
It's quintessentially Brendan.
This is the thing that catapulted him to superstardom. Yeah. This is why so many Americans and love him. This is why why so many Irish people love him, because this is Brendan Grace. And this is it. I don't know whether you agree now, but this is his best sketch. Absolutely, this is his best one.
We will welcome please the Father of the Bride.
I'd like to welcome you all to the wedding reception. Today, I am happy that my daughter is getting married. I remember when she first came to me, and she said that she wanted to get married. I said, is it someone you know? it turned out to be someone we all know. So he came around to my house, you know what I mean? And he says, I'd like to marry your daughter. I said, have you seen her mother? And he said, I have, but I'd sooner marry your daughter. Which she did. I'd like to thank everybody today who bought a gift. Everybody except for two who didn't bother their bother. Who didn't bother to buy anything. Now, they are the two that got no dinner here today. And they weren't on our side of the family either. Now, today, I would like to just remind you of the wedding gifts that have been received. There were 25 ironing boards, 17 lampshades, all useless, and an electric toaster that only works in America. And some smarter Alec, some comedian here bought them a pram, a baby carriage, and had it delivered to the church. Marked urgent. If I find out who he was, I'd like to help him to laugh it off in the intensive care unit in the county hospital. Now, this wedding today is costing me a fortune, and I would like to call upon the chef to come out and face us. Today was the first time I saw roast beef glowing in the dark and Brussels sprouts in their jackets. I thought the chef made a bowl to the cabbage. You know what I mean? Now, and, well, that's a good match. I'll keep that. I would like to single out the man who's now my son-in-law. We're related now through drink. My daughter could have married a man with intelligence. She could have married a man with money. You listening to me down there? She could have married a man who was working. She could have married a man that wasn't working but was willing to work. She could have married a man. She could have married a man. Good luck. Hang on.
Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's some of our top picks, and I think we left it on a fantastic one there. Father of the Bride, probably one of his best, certainly one of his most famous sketches, and the one that shot him to stardom, not only in Ireland but in America. And the fact that the late great Frank Sinatra was the one that brought him over, because he'd found him so funny, and he found him just as funny as we did, you know. It's definitely been a weird one for me. Generally, I don't get hung up on celebrities dying and whatnot, but Brendan Grace was different. I looked up to him. He was definitely an idol of mine. I very much regret that I didn't get to see him as often as I would have liked. The fact that I only got to see him live twice is a definite big regret for me, and I don't have many regrets, but that's certainly one of them. But I've enjoyed the ride, and the best part is, even though he's gone, our memories will stay with us. Yeah. And there'll always be videos, there'll always be YouTube and DVDs and specials on TV, and we'll still see him, we'll still hear his voice, and Brendan, we'll never forget you. So normally at the end of the show, and I'd like to thank Paul for coming on.
Thank you very much, Gerry. It's been a pleasure.
We thank you, Paul. It's great to have someone on who loved him as much as me. We generally, at the end of the show, ladies and gentlemen, I generally give an outro and I go, you've been nerdy, I've been Gerry, thank you and good night. But this time I'm not going to say that. This time I'm going to give Brendan's end of night address. As he simply would say, good night, God bless, and safe home. Good luck, Brendan.
Raised on songs and stories, heroes of renown, the passing tales and glories that once was Dublin town. The hallowed halls and houses and the haunting children's rhymes that once was part of Dublin in the rare old times. Ring a rosy as the light declines. I remember Dublin city in the rare old times. Oh, me name it is Sean Dempsey, I'm as Dublin as can be. Born hard and late in Pimlico, in a house that ceased to be. By trade I was a cooper, lost out to redundancy, and like my house that fell to progress, betrays a memory. And ring a rosy as the light declines. I remember Dublin city in the rare old times. The years have made me bitter, and the gargles dimmed me brain. For Dublin keeps on changing, and nothing seems the same. The Metropole and Pillar are gone, and the Royal long since pulled down, as the grey unyielding concrete makes a city of my town. A ring a rosy as the light declines. I remember Dublin city in the rare old times. And this is a little special verse to the memory of some of the great Dublin people like Brendan Behan, Jimmy O'D, James Joyce, all the people who made Dublin famous around the place. Fare thee well, my Anna Liffey, sure I can no longer stay and watch the new glass cages that spring up all along your quay. Me mind's too full of memories, too old to learn new chimes. I'm a part of what was Dublin in the rain.